What's going on, hybrids? We're back with another episode, and today I'm going to be taking you through my hybrid training plan. So if any of you have been following me on social media or over the past couple months or whatever, you'll know that I've had a few races. I've been lifting still, obviously. And I'm just going to give you a breakdown of what my training program looks like right now, the runs I've been doing, my training style, all that kind of stuff, so you can have some insight into what I do as a coach, an athlete, and you may get an insight as to some of the stuff that I do for my clients as well. Nonetheless, let's not talk anymore, let's dive in. So if any of you didn't know, I've had a couple races this year and I've got one more coming up, which is actually this weekend at the time this is being filmed. So I had a trail run about 2 months ago, that was 12 kilometers. I had the Newcastle half marathon, which I hit a PB at, which was 2 weeks ago. And this weekend I have the Hocker half marathon. All of these races are here in New South Wales, and I've been competing a little bit just to get my legs in the mood, to get the feel for racing again, and just to see where I'm at right now in terms of my performance. Thus far, it has been promising. Everything I've done in terms of my training and whatnot has worked. So I want to give you some insight as to what that has looked like. At my most recent race, which was the Newcastle half marathon, I managed to hit a PB. It was an hour 33 half marathon. I think that worked out to be 4:24 pace. It'll say it here. And I felt absolutely amazing on the day. I did this without a taper as well. I just went into it because my main focus is this race that is this coming weekend, which is the Hocker half marathon. And I went into that race without really tapering. All I did was just reduce my volume slightly a couple days before on my last run before the race. But otherwise, I didn't really do all that much in terms of tapering, as this race coming up this weekend has been my main focus. I treated that Newcastle half marathon as a training day, and everything went amazingly well. I couldn't have asked for a better race. Conditions were awesome. I felt great. My body weight, if any of you know, I've been dropping weight. I lost about 6 kilos over the past couple months, and new weight that I'm at definitely feels better for running. I felt so much lighter on my feet and more efficient. I felt like I could actually push into the floor, which was great, and I felt like every step I was going a little bit further. Funnily enough, at the end of the race, I actually didn't feel tired at all. Although I did a half marathon and I hit a PB, I did not feel smashed at all like I have at previous races. I felt like I honestly could have kept going, which is awesome, and I felt like I had more in the tank. So I hope that if everything goes to plan this weekend, we may be on for something similar to what I did there. The difference being this weekend has a lot more elevation. The course I did previously was a lot flatter. I'll be happy if I achieve anything close to what I did at the past race, but if I get a little bit better, that would be amazing as well. Nonetheless, we'll see and we'll find out on the day. So in terms of my training, in this video, I'm going to give you a breakdown of my lifting stuff and my running stuff. Right now, I am doing 4 runs a week, and I'm doing a variety of runs, which I'm about to take you through. And then I'm lifting 3 days a week, still doing all of the main compound movements, squat, bench, deadlift, all that kind of stuff, although they have not been a priority as much as the running has, which is why I'm doing more running right now than I am lifting. The other thing to keep in mind for me is I've come from a powerlifting and strength training background. My strength and all that is quite high. I am probably well above the average. I'm probably in that advanced category. However, my running, not so much. I'm probably more towards the intermediate range, which is why I need to put a little bit more time and effort towards it if I want to get it up to par with where my lifting skill is. So that's why I've focused a little bit more on it. I've said this in the past, is if you have a competition coming up, whether it be lifting or running, make that training modality your priority for a period of time so you can just focus on it, and then have the other training style around that modality. So with these races, they were my focus. Running was my focus, and I based my lifting sessions around that. That made training for the marathon, or training for the half marathons a lot easier. It allowed me to focus on what I needed to do in order to get the performance that I wanted. And then I used my lifting as best I could to maintain or build very slowly, but primarily for me, it was just maintain what I could while I still tried to hit those PBs on the road. Let's go through some of my runs and all that kind of stuff I've been doing. We'll head over to the whiteboard. Welcome to the whiteboard. So I'm going to break down my training week. This is what it looked like. Don't worry if you can't read it. I'm going to have an image over the screen now. This is what worked for me. I'm not saying you should do this. And this is not necessarily the most optimal way to train. This is just the way to train that fit with my schedule, running a business, all that kind of stuff. This is what worked for me, and this is the way I had to do it. Monday for me was squat focused. So I would do my heavy squats generally on a Monday. And all of my training in terms of weights is full body, by the way, but I'm not really going to go into that. Squat, full body session, plus my easy run. Tuesday would be an easy run or intervals. Most of the time it would be intervals, and I think every third week I had it as an easy run. My Wednesday session would be like a bench focused training session plus full body weights, no run. Thursday would be a run, and that would be either my tempo run or hills. It would mainly be a tempo based run. Friday will be my deadlift session plus full body. Saturday, I will rest completely. Sunday will be my long run. In terms of my runs, I'm going to go through what I did and roughly where my volume was at. So my easy run ranged in the beginning of my training block anywhere from 7 up to 12 kilometers. When I did intervals, it would be around the 8 to 12 kilometer mark. When I did my tempo session, it would also be anywhere between 7 to about 13 kilometers. My Thursday tempo session would also be anywhere between 7 to about 13 kilometers. My long run started at about 14 kilometers, and over the course of a few months, I built it up all the way to a 28 kilometer long run. You do not need to do a 28 kilometer long run if you are training for a half marathon, but I'll break this down a little bit more. The easy run is just a slow, easy run. The goal is not to have a pace target. There was no pace target for my easy run. It's just whatever I felt like doing on the day. The main thing was just run consistently without breaks, go slow, be comfortable, get my heart rate up. I tried to keep it within that zone 2 range. I did a lot of my easy run training wearing a heart rate monitor for that reason. And that would be the same for my easy run if it was on a Tuesday. If I ever had intervals though, I normally wouldn't really wear a heart rate monitor because my heart rate would spike and come down and spike and come down so high. But for my interval session, that might have looked like a warm up, and then I might have done 5 by 800 meters at 340 pace or 350 pace, which is what I think I did last week. And the purpose of the interval session is to be faster than what my race pace would be. The primary focus being of the interval session to increase my VO2 max, or to improve the maximal amount of oxygen I can intake per minute per kilo of body weight. You can look in my last video where I break down different types of energy systems and different types of things that make up your fitness, being your VO2 max, lactate threshold, and running economy. My Thursday run was either a tempo session or hills. The tempo session would be roughly around race pace, sometimes slightly faster, depending on how long they were, sometimes slightly lower. Race pace for me now is about 4:20 mark, 4 minutes 20 per kilometer. So if I did a tempo session, it might have been, for example, one warm up, then 1 kilometer at race pace, 1 kilometer maybe really slow. 1 kilometer at race pace, 1 kilometer really slow. And I would repeat that. Or it might have been a longer distance, maybe 3, 4, 5 kilometers at race pace or a little bit slower than that, depending on where I was at in my training block. And then it would usually result in a cool down after that of some sort. The hills session, I wouldn't really worry about pace. And I would normally do hills every 3 or 4 weeks. Hills would be, I would run, warm up, run to the hill near me, and I would do anywhere from 8 up to I think 16 60-second intervals up the hill where I basically just do hill sprints. Jog back down, catch my breath, and hill sprint back up. The purpose of a tempo session is generally to improve your lactate threshold, your body's ability to clear lactate. The purpose of the hills is kind of similar. It also works out VO2 max a little bit because you're generally training at a higher heart rate zone than you would normally. But also hills can actually be really good at decreasing the amount of fatigue you're experiencing because when you're running up a hill, your legs actually aren't traveling as far. You're climbing less. Although you're pushing through the floor harder and literally lifting your body weight up, the range of motion that they have to travel is a lot less, and it can be a great way to manage fatigue if you've been experiencing a lot of fatigue. Hills are also a great way just to improve your speed. The primary focus, my big sessions of the week, that interval session, which is working on my speed and my VO2 max, that tempo session, which is working on my ability to maintain that speed, and then the last one being my long run, which is my overall aerobic fitness, overall fitness. The interesting thing about the long run for me was that the long run was not an easy run. The long run normally had some kilometers within it that were either at race pace or some kilometers in it that were progressively getting faster. So I may have started out really slow, and by the end of that long run, I would have been getting at or close to race pace. The long run for me was the hardest run that I did. Although the intensity on average was higher on average for the interval and tempo run, the long run was harder because it had the duration of it, but also because it normally had some tempo intervals mixed in there. The other thing about the long run, the primary focus of that is to build up that aerobic base, and it's the big one where the most of your kilometers are in your training week. It's the one that is going to do a lot of those fitness improvements. And now the reason why I did a 28-kilometer long run as my longest run of my training block, even though I was doing a half marathon, is because I wanted to get extra volume in, and the way that I calculated my training block is that the long run was the easiest way for me to add some of that extra volume because it actually didn't really mess with my Monday easy run. And surprisingly, it didn't really mess with my Tuesday intervals all that much. In an ideal world, I would have spaced these out a little bit differently, but because of my schedule, I really couldn't. Nonetheless, the long run, running 28Ks was hard, but it actually felt great. And I think doing the volume that I did on a lot of these things helped me out probably the most. I started out at about 35, 40 kilometers, and I worked my way as high as 68, I think, kilometers in my final week of training. And this was the most volume I've been able to handle for the longest period of time. What I recommend many people do is don't just try to go 30, 40, 50, 60 and just add heaps of mileage to your weekly kilometers. Increase it slowly, and in some cases you may not need to increase it at all, because you will still get an adaptation by running that same volume for periods of time. For me, my mileage increased really slowly. I started training over 3 months ago for this race, and I think that worked in my favor. It allowed me to increase really slow, allow my body to adapt slowly. I didn't really get any overuse injuries or anything like that. Everything felt really good for the most part, and I managed to work my volume very slowly all the way up to about that 70-kilometer mark by the final peak week that I had. So that's how I did my runs: easy, or intervals, deadlift, tempo or hills, long run, and normally mixed in there with some kind of progression or tempo intervals in there as well. And that's a wrap on another video. I hope you guys got something out, or maybe learned something about the way I train and what you could apply to your own training. I think one of the biggest takeaways here is you have to look at what you want to prioritize at what given time. Because I had these races coming up, I had to prioritize my running, which meant I very likely experienced suboptimal weight training. And if I was trying to get absolutely as strong as I would have and could have, I probably wouldn't have structured my training week that way. But I put majority of my eggs in the running basket to ensure that I could get the result I needed to on race day. And hopefully this weekend, I'll have another good run to back up all of my work over the past couple of months. I'm at a stage now where doing a 50-50 split when I have a competition coming up, like 50-50 meaning even distribution of weight training to running training, probably doesn't get me the gains I want when I have a race coming up. Lifting competition coming up, I focus a little bit more on trying to improve either my lifting or my running based off whatever I have. The key takeaway here being that at times you are going to need to prioritize one thing over the other. Because I was running so much and because I was putting so much focus on my running performance, it did mean that my lifting had to suffer a little bit. Doesn't mean that it went to shit, it just means it had to suffer a little bit for now. And now, once this race is over this weekend, I'll be able to put some of those eggs back in the lifting basket and hopefully get those numbers back up like they were before. To be honest, I didn't really lose all that much anyway. It's just that I didn't feel great when I did my lifting sessions, which meant that I wasn't able to push the numbers as much as I wanted to. Running and lifting can definitely work together, but sometimes you just have to be clear as to what your main goal is, and that may mean that you need to change your objectives in terms of your training to achieve that. Nonetheless, I hope you guys got something out of this video and learned a lot or a little, got some insight into my training and how I've been doing my training leading up to the next race. And if you need help coaching or your next lifting competition or training hybrid in general, as always, you can find me on Instagram at Coach Michael Sekos, and feel free to reach out. And I have online coaching spots available to anyone, anywhere in the world. All you have to do is contact me and I'll do the rest. Thanks so much for watching once again, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.